Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Jamunatira Vanachari Jamunatira Vanachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Jamunatira Vanachari Jamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajagacharya Ashtottara Shatta Shri Srimad-Bhagavatam Charnarvinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Shri Srimad Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada Thakur Ki Jai Srimad-Bhagavatam Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Deving Saraswating Vyasam Tato Jayo Mudirayat Nasta Praishvabhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyutama shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. Today we're reading from Canto 10, Chapter 90, Text 25. Shri Shuka Uvacha Iti Drishyena Bhavena Krishna Yogeshwareshware Kriyamane Namadhavyo Lebhyere Paramam Gatim Iti Drishyena Bhavena Krishna Yogeshwareshware Kriyamane Namadhavyo Lebhyere Paramam Gatim. Iti Drishyena Bhavena Lebhyere Paramam Gatim. Ladies, Shukavacha Drishyena Bhavena Krishna Yogeshwareshware Kriyamane Namadhavyo Lebhyere Paramam Gatim. Shri Shuka Uvacha Drishyena Bhavena Krishna Yogeshwareshware Kriyamane Namadhavyo Lebhyere Paramam Gatim. Shri Shuka Uvacha Shukadev Goswami said, Iti, speaking thus, Idrishena, with such, Bhavena, ecstatic love, Krishna, for Krishna, Yoga Ishvara, of masters of yoga, Ishvare, the master, Kriyamanena, behaving, Madhavya, the wives of Lord Madhava, Lebhyere, they attained, Paramam, ultimate, Gatim, the goal. Translation, Shukadev Goswami said, by thus speaking and acting with such ecstatic love for Lord Krishna, the master of all masters of mystic yoga, his loving wives attained the ultimate goal of life. I'll read it again. Shukadeva Goswami said, by thus speaking and acting with such ecstatic love for Lord Krishna, the master of all mystics, the master of all masters of mystic yoga, his loving wives attained the ultimate goal of life. Okay, so we'll put a little question before we start reading the purport. They attained the goal of life. Hadn't they already attained the goal just by living with Krishna? So that's brought up in the purport. They're already perfect, but anyway, we'll see what you find in the purport. According to Acharya Sri Jiva Goswami, here, Shukadeva Goswami uses the present tense of the word kriyamanena to indicate that the Lord's queens attained his eternal abode immediately without delay. By this insight, the Acharya helps refute the false notion that after Lord Krishna's departure from this world, some primitive cowherds kidnapped his queens while they were under the protection of Arjuna. In fact, as the self-realized Vaishnava commentators elsewhere explain, Lord Krishna himself appeared in the guise of the thieves who abducted the queens. For further information on this subject, see Srila Prabhupada's purport to Srimad-Bhagavatam 1:15-20. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti remarks that the supreme goal attained by these exalted women was not the liberation of the impersonal yogis, but the perfect state of prema bhakti, pure loving devotion. Indeed, since they were already imbued with divine love of God from the very beginning, they possessed transcendental bodies of eternity, knowledge, and bliss, in which they were fully able to relish the pleasure of reciprocating with the Supreme Lord in his most intimate, sweet pastimes. Okay, see the tension here? What's going on? They achieved perfection, but they were already there. I'll read that last sentence. Indeed, since they were already imbued with divine love of God from the very beginning, they possessed transcendental bodies of eternity, knowledge, and bliss, in which they were fully able to relish the pleasure of reciprocating with the Supreme Lord in his most intimate, sweet pastimes. Specifically, in the opinion of Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti, their love of God matured into the ecstasy of madness in pure love, bhavanmada, just as the gopis' love did when Krishna disappeared from their midst during the rasa dance. Gopis were already perfect, but then Krishna left them and they became even more perfect. At that time, the gopis experienced the full development of ecstatic madness, which they expressed in their inquiries from the various creatures of the forest, and in such words as Krishnoham pashyata gatim, I am Krishna. Just see how gracefully I move. And that's from 10.30.19. Similarly, the vilas, or flourishing transformation of the ecstatic love of Lord Dwarkadish's principal queens, has produced the prema vaichitriya symptoms they have exhibited here. So I'll read the verse again. Shukadeva Goswami said, by thus speaking and acting with such ecstatic love for Lord Krishna, the master of all masters of mystic yoga, his loving wives attained the ultimate goal of life. Om Ajnana Timarandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So before speaking, giving any class, talking with anyone about Krishna Katha, referring to Prabhupada's books, we keep using the Veda base as a tool. How many here use Veda base? You're familiar with it? Yeah, and so one of the main people behind the Veda base was Ekanath, who is from Holland. He's even taller than me. And he just passed away like a few weeks ago. So I feel really good every time I share Veda base with someone, some new devotee, or some new person just brand new to Krishna consciousness. I show them this and they're surprised. There's a whole library, it's searchable, it's such a valuable tool. So I'll speak a little bit about Ekanath before going into this. He told me, because we used to be neighbors, we lived on Krishna Road in North Carolina. We got to name that road. And he said he spent the first winter in the temple in Holland, and there was no heat in the building. So as soon as things warmed up a little, he said, I'm getting out of here. I'm going to India. Initially, they were going to ride. He found a friend with an old Volkswagen and two other friends. So four of them were going to pack into that little Volkswagen Bug and drive all the way to India from Holland. The car kept breaking down, so he just said, forget this, I'm going on my own. And he hitchhiked all the way to India. Not only did he hitchhike all the way to India, he hitchhiked across India to go to Mayapur, because that's where Prabhupada was at the time. And the whole time he was wearing big Dutch wooden shoes. What do they call them? Clogs, klumper. Kadam, well, yeah, but the Dutch have a name, klumpen, something like that. So great big wooden shoes. He wore them all the way from Holland to Mayapur, and he says as soon as he stepped on the land, one of the shoes split in half. And so he just tossed it up on the rubbish pile. And the next morning, Prabhupada was on his walking out with the devotees, and he noticed these big white Dutch wooden shoes. And he pointed, and so somebody told him, there's a devotee that just arrived here from Holland. And Prabhupada seemed amused by that. So Ekanath, as if that wasn't hard enough, after being there with Prabhupada in Mayapur, he went to help with the Bombay temple in Juhu. And that's just as hard as hitchhiking from Holland in wooden shoes. So he did that, settled in Los Angeles, got involved with the Bhaktivedanta archives, and then they set up the Veda base, which we use all the time, every day. And then, let's see, and then just a couple weeks after him, another devotee from the archives, Ranjit, who was involved with managing the archives and just kind of touching on all points of it. I would go and visit him. Ranjit just passed away also, just a couple weeks after. Here they go. It's getting that time in our life. It's not a surprise anymore. So Ekanath and Ranjit Ki Jai. Just wanted to say their names. Let's see, what else? So back on the subject here, we're talking about, well, for the last few days, we've been reading about Krishna's queens who are experiencing what's called prema vaichitrya, which means you're feeling separation from your beloved, even when you're with them, and even to the point of you're with them, but you're hallucinating that you're not, that they've already gone. So the last several verses, they've been addressing things in nature, like saying to the moon, you look like you're getting thinner every day. Are you suffering tuberculosis? Or is it because you're missing your husband, your master, just like we're missing our husband? Krishna was watching them speak all of these crazy words, prema vaichitrya. We'll read more about that in a minute, but one thing I wanted to point out. We were in Rishikesh for the last few weeks, talking to a lot of people, just going over basic things from Bhagavad Gita again and again, talking to people studying yoga, talking about controlling the mind and senses, stilling the mind so that you can hear the Paramatma. We're reading a chapter of Bhagavad Gita with the group every day. And one thing we noticed at the end of chapter 10 is Vibhuti Yoga. Krishna is explaining all of his different vibhutis, anything that's wonderful, powerful, beautiful, that represents Krishna. And he says, that's just a little tiny angsha of my power. That represents me. I was thinking this morning, this beautiful temple here represents one little angsha of Prabhupada's Shakti. He's got this power to influence people. This beautiful temple was created so many years ago, and temples continue to be created under his Shakti. And that's just a little tiny bit of his power. Not only that, all of the books, lectures, letters he's written. So just a little tiny bit of Prabhupada's Shakti. In one conversation, he said, nobody knows how much energy the living entity has, which is being covered by the illusory potency. So each of us has Shakti similar to Prabhupada's. It's depending on our capacity to surrender to Krishna and surrender to previous authorities. Prabhupada encouraged all of us to, he would say, I'm just one man, look what I've done. You can do that too. And he meant it for everybody to do this. And when I joined, I was 18 years old. I heard devotees talking about Prabhupada. I read the things he said, and I felt like, okay, by the time I'm his age, I'm going to be something like that. But now you could look at me. I'm the age Prabhupada was when he landed in America, wandering around in a foreign country, 69 years old, just turned a couple months ago. I was thinking about that on my birthday, like Prabhupada was on the ship, on the Jaladuta, going somewhere he'd never been before. So I thought, okay, now's the time. I got to do something. So that's one of the reasons I came to India this year. Let's see what happens. Try to stir something up. I think all of us feel that way. In our youth, we met devotees who had only been around for a couple of months, and they just seemed so attractive, so intelligent. They had so much going, and we felt like, okay, if that's what 2 months will give you, by the time I'm Prabhupada's age, definitely, I'm going to have something. I'm going to be able to do something. But the more I read his books, the more I study his life, it just seems so out of reach. How can we ever do that? And yet, he wants us to do that. He's given so many instructions to all of us. Try to do what I'm doing. All right, so anyway, back on Vibhuti. So that chapter 10, Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is saying, of everything amazing, wonderful, opulent, that's just a little spark of what I am. He says, there's no need for all this detailed information. This whole universe, ekam shena stito jagat, just one angsha, one little tiny particle, I support, pervade the whole universe. The material creation is something Krishna does practically in his sleep. He doesn't give much attention to it. So after saying that, the next chapter, Arjuna says, I'd like to see that. Can you show me how you pervade and support the whole universe? And Krishna says, nobody can see that. But because I'm unlimited, I will let you see it. I'll give you eyes to see it. And Arjuna sees Krishna's face is everywhere. He says, as if thousands of suns were to rise at once. It would give some idea of how brilliant that form was. And when you see the sun, it's hard to look at, so you look away. But Arjuna could not look away. Even if you put your hands in front of your face, Krishna was still there, shining everywhere, in all directions, all at once. The future, the past, everything happening all at once. So that is ekang shena stito jagat. That's just one little tiny particle. So the reason I'm saying this, I'm building up to where we are here. These conversations with, well, it's a one-sided conversation. These speeches by the queens represent the full, not just an anksha. This is the full measure of Krishna's opulence, of prema madhurya. Krishna has 4 opulences that are even beyond Vishnu. Prema madhurya, who'd like to shout out the others? Leela madhurya, Rupa madhurya, Venu madhurya. So in Dwarka, he doesn't have the flute, but he's enjoying pastimes with his devotees. To have people love you, that's an opulence, more than money can buy, more than anything. That's a great big accomplishment. And to have people love you the way Krishna's devotees love him. One more little story about Prabhupada. People loved Prabhupada so much, they would do crazy things. Even devotees that never saw him. This devotee from South America was talking about, back when Prabhupada was here, back in the late 70s, 1976, devotees would go to the bus terminal in South America. They'd get on the bus with a stack of books. They'd go up and down the bus, put a book in everyone's hand, stand up front and make an announcement. We have these books and we're helping people. Give a donation. It's beautiful literature. And so devotee was going up and down, handing everyone a book. He went to hand a book to one guy. The guy pulled out a gun and said, "Don't you give me that book." So he passed him up. And then as he got to the front of the bus, he thought, you know, if I leave my body while serving Srila Prabhupada, that's guaranteed I'm going back to Godhead. He went straight back to the guy with the gun and put the book in his hand. Went up front, made his speech, and he was serious about that. We were all like that. That's the way things were back when Prabhupada was on the planet. We were ready to do anything. Okay, so also this madness, speech in madness, people going crazy, devotees, we do some crazy stuff, and we throw some really wild parties. Because we get together, we talk about Krishna, we chant Hare Krishna, we share prasad, and like our inhibitions go down, like our guard goes down. We feel comfortable sharing our heart with each other. We start talking loud, laughing, and it gets as wild and crazy as any drinking party. The thing is, when you go to a drinking party, it turns ugly. When people lose their inhibitions from drinking, you kind of wish they would put those inhibitions back on. Because it's such a tamasic activity. When we engage in tamasic activities, we get a tamasic result, which is destructive. It's ugly. Adho gachanti tamasa. They're talking about the 3 modes of nature, and then Krishna says the abominable mode of ignorance. He's talking about sattva, rajas. Rajas isn't so nice. Tamas, he says, abominable. So the results of activities in sattva are happiness, prakash, you get illumination. Results of activities in rajas, you get frustration, sadness, and the results of activities in tamas, you get madness. So, mode of gladness, sadness, and madness. So here the queens are talking like crazy people. Is this tamagun? This is a very different kind of madness. It looks similar. People in tamagun, they are in delusion. There are two words, illusion and delusion. Illusion means if I'm a magician and I make it look like I'm pulling birds out of my pocket, it's an illusion. But delusion means you think you are a bird. You think you're something different from what you are. And so tamas is full of delusion. You have these delusions that you're something great, and you're just dreaming about, yeah, if only I had invested in this, then I would have this. If only I'd planted trees 20 years ago, I'd have lots of mangoes. You're always just thinking in the past. So that's tamas. They're in delusion. And it leads to madness. They're suffering, and they just keep returning to the same activity that brought them to their suffering point in the first place. But the gopis are experiencing something very different. This is out of love for Krishna. All right, so I'm going to read some technical stuff. I hope you'll be able to follow this. This is from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. It was mentioned in yesterday's class. Vipralamba has 4 divisions: Purvarag, Mana, Pravas, and Prema Vaichitya. Does anybody know these 4 things? Purvarag? How many know that? Just a few? Okay. Yeah, just a few know. All right. These are points that they could become conversational when you're reading the Leela. Then you recognize, oh, this is Purvarag. So Purvarag is described in the Ujjvala Nilamani when attachment produced in the lover and beloved before their meeting by seeing, hearing, and so on. So when is the Purvarag between Krishna and the gopis manifest? Anybody want to throw that out? That was when, well, there's a few, but the main one is when Krishna was dancing on Kaliya. And all the gopis were able to look at Krishna directly. They didn't have to hide that. And then Krishna, then after fighting with Kaliya, they all spent the night on the bank of the Jamuna. And so at that time, they got to look at each other a little more closely. And so that's when Purvarag developed. Okay, Purvarag. So these are the 4 kinds of Vipralamba, which means separation. Yes. Okay. Purvarag. So, yeah, you got to have some attraction for there to be separation. So, Purva. Mana is a word used to indicate the mood of the lover and the beloved experienced, whether they are in one place or in different places. This mood obstructs their looking at each other and embracing each other, despite the fact that they are attached to each other. Everyone knows about this, mana? You've heard the term before? Man, well, man, mana. In Hindi it would be man. Sanskrit, mana. Nobody knows it? Being kind of moody, Adikarta says, yeah. Yes, Radha hears something, about Krishna, says, I don't want to go near that guy. All right, so even when they're close together, they can't show their affection. And pravas is also explained in the Ujjvala Nilamani. Pravas indicates the separation of lovers who were previously intimately associated. This separation is due to their being in different places. Okay, so that's pretty obvious. They're in separate places, pravas. Just like Krishna going to Dwarka, now Radha is staying in Vrindavan. And then the last one, prema vaichitya, is a word used to indicate an abundance of love that brings about grief from fear of separation, although the lover is present. Prema vaichitya. So that's today's topic. All right, so I'll read the verse again. There are some things in the purport that I wanted to bring out. Shukadeva Goswami said, by thus speaking and acting with such ecstatic love for Lord Krishna, the master of all masters of mystic yoga, his loving wives attained the ultimate goal of life. So, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti remarks that the supreme goal attained by these exalted women was not the liberation of the impersonal yogis, but the perfect state of prema bhakti, pure loving devotion. Indeed, since they were already imbued with divine love of God from the very beginning, they possessed transcendental bodies of eternity, knowledge, and bliss, in which they were fully able to relish the pleasure of reciprocating with the Supreme Lord in his most intimate, sweet pastimes. They were already there, but they achieved perfection, so it became more and more enriched. Lebhire paramam gatim. They achieved the ultimate gatim, destination, the goal. These things need to be said. People think the ultimate goal is, all right, they were queens, and then they just became the light and merged into Krishna. Somehow people extract these meanings from these stories. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna asks Arjuna, so have you heard everything? Have you understood it? And then Arjuna answers, yes. I've heard everything. Now I'm ready to carry out your orders. He doesn't say, now I've heard everything, I've understood it, I'm ready to merge into you. They remain separate. I don't know how people can get these ideas of merging from Bhagavad Gita or from the Srimad-Bhagavatam, except for being very creative. It takes a lot of creativity. Prabhupada, in the third canto, he's talking about the Gyanis. They work really hard to understand, but in the end, he says, all they get, for all of their labor, all they get is the sky. They don't even have any standing. They just live in the sky, the spiritual sky. All right, reading on. Specifically, in the opinion of Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti, their love of God matured into the ecstasy of madness and pure love, bhavonmada, just as the gopis' love did when Krishna disappeared from their midst during the rasa dance. At that time, the gopis experienced the full development of ecstatic madness, which they expressed in their inquiries from the various creatures of the forest, and in such words as, Krishnoham pashyata gatim, I am Krishna. Just see how gracefully I move. Similarly, the vilas, or flourishing transformation of the ecstatic love of Lord Dwarkadish's principal queens, has produced the prema vaichitriya symptoms they have exhibited here. All right, so I picked out from the Krishna book this section, and it was so good reading Krishna book that I just felt like, wow, I could have read the whole section. The way Prabhupada takes all of these commentaries, weaves them into the story. So here we go. Relax. Krishna book. Krishna stories. This is what we used to do in the old days. Everyone has memories of Krishna book and hot milk at night. That was the tradition. Does anyone still do that here? And bananas. Okay, bananas, hot milk, and Krishna book. All right. All the wives of Lord Krishna were completely absorbed in thought of him. Krishna is known as Yogeshwar, the master of all yogis. And all the wives of Krishna at Dwaraka used to keep this Yogeshwar within their hearts. Instead of trying to be master of all yogic mystic powers, it is better if one simply keeps the supreme Yogeshwar Krishna within his heart. Thus one's life can become perfect, and one can very easily be transferred to the kingdom of God. It is to be understood that all the queens of Krishna who lived with him at Dwaraka were, in their previous lives, very greatly exalted devotees who wanted to establish a relationship with Krishna in conjugal love. Thus, they were given the chance to become his wives and enjoy a constant loving relationship with him. Ultimately, they were all transferred to the Vaikuntha planets. Okay. One who is thus drawn to the Krishna consciousness movement and tries to keep himself in constant touch with such consciousness certainly gets the supreme salvation, going back to Krishna and Goloka Vrindavan. If, simply by developing Krishna consciousness, one can be transferred to the spiritual world, one can simply imagine how blissful and blessed were the queens of Lord Krishna, who talked with him personally and saw Lord Krishna face to face. No one can properly describe the fortune of the wives of Lord Krishna. They took care of him personally by rendering various transcendental services like bathing him, feeding him, pleasing him, and serving him. Thus, no one's austerities can compare to the service of the queens at Dwaraka. So there's a lot of queens. I was at the art museum in Chicago giving a class. It was a big class. And there were art students. There's, I don't know, like maybe 100 students in that classroom. And they really enjoyed the whole presentation. And then someone asked, you people talk about all of this self-control. I heard that Krishna had 100 wives, and everybody, all of a sudden, everybody looked really concerned, like, oh no, I was liking this so far, but this seems really hypocritical, that you people are following all of these rules, but your God has 100 wives. So I said, no, you're really mistaken. He doesn't have 100 wives. And then everyone was really, they looked relieved. They believed me. I said, he has 16,000. And then all of a sudden everyone looked shocked. 108 wives. And then they started laughing. And I said, and why not? If Krishna is God, people want to be his wife, why not? Why not 16 million? Why not 16 billion? Everyone wants to be Krishna's wife. These were the only people qualified to take that post. All right, so I'll open up here because we're supposed to present a little bit of Ram Leela. If there's any discussions up to this point, or should I just jump in? It's not very long, since there's so much technical talk about prema, vaichitya, premonmada. I chose a few little things from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Lord Chaitanya celebrating Vijaya Dashami. On the day celebrating the conquest of Lanka, a day known as Vijaya Dashami, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu dressed up all his devotees as monkey soldiers. Displaying the emotions of Hanuman, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took up a large tree branch and, mounting the walls of the Lanka fort, began to dismantle it. In the ecstasy of Hanuman, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu angrily said, "Where is that rascal Ravan? He has kidnapped the universal mother Sita. Now I shall kill him and all his family." So that's how Lord Chaitanya would celebrate Ram Vijayotsava. Just before that, it talked about celebrating Janmashtami. Devotees dressed up like cowherd boys, someone dressed up as Yashoda and Nanda, and let's see, who was it? Someone said, "I can tell what kind of a cowherd boy you are by how you can twirl this stick." And so they handed it to Lord Chaitanya, and he started twirling it around. He threw it up in the air, caught it behind his back, caught it between his legs. Everyone was astonished. How could he do that? So this is how they would celebrate these days. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his devotees participated in all the festivals, including Rasa Yatra, Deepavali, and Uttana. Now, another quotation. When Lord Chaitanya is speaking to Sanatana Goswami describing devotional service, he speaks the verse that many of you know, Krishna Surya Sama Maya Haya Andakar Yahan Krishna Tahanai Mayara Adhikar. Krishna is compared to sunshine, and Maya is compared to darkness. Wherever there is sunshine, there cannot be darkness. As soon as one takes to Krishna consciousness, the darkness of illusion will immediately vanish. One is immediately, and then the next verse, one is immediately freed from the clutches of Maya if he seriously and sincerely says, "My dear Lord Krishna, although I have forgotten you for so many long years in the material world, today I'm surrendering unto you. I am your sincere and serious servant. Please engage me in your service." And then Lord Chaitanya quotes from the Ramayana, "Sakrid eva prapannoyas tavasmiti chayachate abhayam sarvada tasmai dadam yetam yetad vratam mama." It is my vow that if one only once seriously surrenders unto me, saying, "My dear Lord, from this day I am yours," and prays to me for courage, I shall immediately award courage to that person, and he will always remain safe from that time on. This is from the Yuddha Kanda, 1833, was spoken by Lord Ramachandra. And it's in relation to when Vibhishana came to their camp, and Lakshman was saying, "Why should we accept him? He has rejected, he's left his brother in the moment of need. When we have a difficult time, what's to stop him from leaving us?" And Lord Ram said, "I don't care. If he surrenders to me, I will keep him forever." Lord Chaitanya used this verse to make this point, starting back with Krishna Surya Sama Maya Haya Andhakar. As soon as we turn away from Maya and we turn to Krishna, and then the next verse saying, "You will be immediately freed from the clutches of Maya if you sincerely say, although I have forgotten you for so many years, today I'm surrendering unto you. I am your servant. Please engage me in your service." Then he says, if we have that sincere attitude, Krishna cannot help but accept us. Lord Ram. He's speaking it through Lord Ram's voice, but Krishna, same thing. It is my vow that if one only once seriously surrenders unto me, saying, my dear Lord, from this day I am yours, and prays to me for courage, I shall immediately award courage to that person, and he will always remain safe from that time on. So if we've ever at any time felt like that sincerely, we're safe. Sri Ram is the Maryada Purushottama, and this aspect is also there in Krishna, although he has other aspects, more playful aspects. But he will honor this. So Sri Ramachandra ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Anything?
We always ask questions.
You do.
Because I don't know anything. I have to ask questions. So, the queens that were actually praying to be, you said Ramachandra, they wanted to be with Ramachandra, so they couldn't do that because Ramachandra was Ekapatni, showing by his example. But some of the queens were Nitya Siddhas and others were Sadhana Siddhas. So by sadhana practice, by chanting and hearing and following rules and regulations, you can also become a queen of Krishna's, and you can also achieve that status.
Oh boy, yeah, we're getting into deep stuff. Sometimes Prabhupada indicates that yeah, we can go there. Then other times it's like you be the servant of those. And the, let's see, those, what were they called? The rishis who saw Ram and wanted that relation, they became gopis. I'm not sure where the queens come from. I haven't found anything directly about that. But you brought up something, reminded me, something else I wanted to say.
See, I'm good for something.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so we talked about Ekamshena Stito Jagat, just one little anksha of Krishna's Shakti is this whole universe. It was the vision that shocked Arjuna, and here we're seeing the full potency of Krishna in Dwaraka. He's full. He's perfect, he's complete. But in Mathura, he's more perfect and more complete. And in Vrindavan, even more so. There's even more Shakti, more opulence in Vrindavan. And that's what completely shocked Lord Brahma when Brahma came back after stealing the cowherd boys and the calves. And he saw all of these forms. He was able to comprehend more than we ever could. And that comprehension leads to more bewilderment. We could just see a lot of sounds and forms and be confused, but Brahma understood what these represent, what they are. And he was shocked at the magnitude of Krishna's power. Vrindavan is the most opulent because of this Prema Madhurya, Leela Madhurya, Rupa Madhurya, Venu Madhurya. That's only here in Vrindavan. I was looking at the tamal tree thinking, okay, the way it's kind of, the branches are twisty, and Radha would see a tamal tree sometimes and think that's Krishna. So this illusion of you're with the beloved and you're thinking they're gone, it can work the other way too. When your beloved is gone, you can think they are there. I didn't get a chance to look it up. Nectar Devotion, maybe someone knows the quotation. Yashoda is saying, why did you take Krishna away? And Nanda is saying, maybe I've got it mixed up, but Nanda is saying, what are you talking about? He's right here. Can't you see him? You crazy woman. So Nanda has gone crazy. Yashoda has gone crazy. But this is the kind of crazy that we are aspiring to. Most of our life, well, in yoga practice, I was explaining to the yogis, we have this range of emotions and distractions that goes way out here, and through yoga, you're trying to calm that and bring it down till you come to this pinpoint of focus on the Atma, on the self. And you got this pinpoint of just silence. But then, these are lines continue. So in the higher state, there becomes a whole other realm of emotions and colors and sounds and activities. Did you understand that? Okay. Yeah, I was talking to a yoga teacher. That just happened one day. And when she saw that, it was just so pleasing to see the look of recognition on her face. And she said, I had a feeling there's something on the other side. But for the Gyanis, they're just trying to go to that pinpoint of nothing. But we want to keep going. Madness, craziness. And what's the lowest down here becomes the highest up there. Madness down here when you see the guy walking down the street shouting to people that you don't see. That's pretty low. But when you see Mother Yashoda, when you see Radharani talking to a bumblebee, it's way up there at the top of that tree. It's being reflected down here. Yes?
It's very interesting that a lot of the gopis, they came from different backgrounds in their previous existence. And so Kubja, for instance, was Suparnika. This is in the Garga Samhita, that Suparnika kind of had an attraction for Ram, but he was married. So she got to take birth as Kubja. And then the daughters of Varuna, they saw Matsya, and they became attracted to Matsya, so they also became gopis. So Krishna fulfills the desires of the devotees that want to have a relationship with him in different ways. So as far as Panchagoda's question, it would seem that some of the queens must have come from seeing Ram, but they didn't want to be gopis, they wanted to be a wife of Krishna. Because who else was it? The Rishi-chari sages in Dandakaranya forest, they wanted to have a relationship with Ram. They became gopis, so many different categories became gopis just by seeing a form of Ram, and they just wanted to have a conjugal relationship with him, but they couldn't with him. It's all amazing. Hare Krishna.
In the Nectar of Devotion, there is a passage that Nanda Maharaj was suffering of man sambhoga, which is the delusion that Krishna was present all the time, eternally, whereas Jashoda, she had man vipralamba, that suffering of separation from Krishna. And like it's been said before, man is like madness, this Baba feeling. And both they are, very purifying. But the Vipralamba, it's actually more intense, to hungering for Krishna, which is, that's the one, Lord Chaitanya came with that one. One thing I wanted to mention about this verse, it's correct that the queen they were not protected by Arjuna. When Krishna left the planet, all the power of Arjuna diminished. But those kidnappers, they were actually, they called the cow boys. No cower boys, Vrindavan, Krishna's friends, cow boys, and they were actually Krishna himself, because these queens, they can only be touched by Krishna, and not any ordinary living entities. And that's why there were a bunch of them, even though Arjuna defeated, the old Kauravas and the Battle of Kurukshetra. But this bunch of Kauravas, cowboys, they defeated Arjuna. Arjuna couldn't protect them. But they were Krishna himself, as he explained in the purport.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Srimad-Bhagavatam ki jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Hari Bol.
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna.